Hi, my name is Amanda, and today the Equine Information Source is in conversation with Dr. Paul Sharpe. Dr. Sharpe has a PhD in Animal Physiology and is a retired professor from the University of Guelph that specialized in pasture management. He is the lead author and editor of a horse pasture management textbook. Thank you, Dr. Sharpe, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to talk with the Equine Information Source today.
What is efficient hay feeding, and how do you suggest is the best way to achieve it in the fall and winter months?
I think you want to include waste or lack of waste in what you're thinking about in terms of efficiency. So a covered hay feeder that's designed to cover a round bale or to have several small square bales dumped into it. This will reduce wastage of hay by an amount that will save you a lot of dollars. With no feeder, waste of hay that's just dumped on the ground for animals to eat it can be more than or up to about 57% in one study. And with the best feeder, your waste can be as low as 5%. So the three best brands that were tested in Minnesota and reported by a lady named Katrina Merkies, who is a wonderful horse forage expert at University of Minnesota. The three brands that she indicated back in 2014 were the best were Wasteless, CinchNet, and Hay Hut. And I imagine a lot of designs have probably changed since she published that work in 2014. Now let's go beyond waste prevention and think about keeping horses busy while they eat. That's efficient for their digestive system. It's also pretty efficient at seeing that bales of hay are completely used or used as completely as possible. There's several products now that are referred to as slow feeders. Most of these involve either a net or a grate on top of the supply of hay. So the horses really have to nibble away at this. They have similar things in bowls for feeding dogs too, things that will slow down the intake of food. So the hay can be loose or it can still be in a bale with the string removed. And again, Katrina Merkies' group has tackled this issue. They've produced an article called 6 Ways to Slow Horse Feed Intake. One item from that article is a thing called slow feed hay nets. At a conference in Guelph last summer, I saw a local Ontario company that was developing really innovative products with a net on top of a box to hold hay, and they're very effective at slowing feeding to mimic a natural grazing time of about 13 hours a day. The smaller the holes in the nets, the slower the horses will eat.
What can you suggest to those struggling to afford feed for the horses in the winter?
To start with, I think you could follow the two basic ideas from the previous question. You can make sure you have a cover over and around the hay to prevent waste. Martinson's report on this even has calculated times to recover the cost of the feeder. A lot of these designs of feeders can save you money. For some of them, the payback time was less than a year. Use a net or a grate with holes of an appropriate size for your horses to keep them eating for a natural length of time after one feeding. Keep some feed available through the night. Lots of horses will want to feed through the night. And a horse that's focusing on eating forages is not very likely to overeat or to get into trouble from boredom. Other points there for trying to economize on feed for the winter: buy or make a type of hay or a grade of hay that closely matches the nutrient requirements of your horses. What you want to do is avoid having to buy large amounts of expensive supplements. Unless horses are in late pregnancy, early lactation, or a heavy work schedule, they don't need a lot of grain or commercial supplements. They evolved on native prairie grasses that were only green through the summer, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later. Once you've determined the physical quality of your hay with the use of a hay judging scorecard, send a sample of each hay type to a feed testing lab. Then have a nutritionist formulate a ration. They'll need to know the body weight and body condition score of your horses, what physiological stages they're in, that is, are they pregnant or growing, and what's their age. So if things go well, the need for supplements other than vitamins and minerals will be minimal. Often, if you have horses that are only doing very light work or not getting much exercise at all, a good grass hay will meet their nutrient requirements other than a vitamin mineral supplement and some salt.
What are some easy to implement pasture management strategies for the fall and winter months for horse and barn owners that will help to maximize the use of their pastures and reduce other feeding costs?
During the winter, I suggest you keep your horses off your pastures as much as possible. And also in any wet times that create a lot of mud. Avoid having horses on muddy ground because they make holes and destroy the crowns of the forage plants. There are some good articles that came out of both Kentucky and Vermont a few years ago on how you can better drain some of these areas by digging down about 8 or 9 inches with a bulldozer, putting in 2 different grades of granular material separated by fiber cloth or geotextile, and making sure that if you have any super wet parts that they're drained with a tile drain or a French drain, and this will reduce the muddy aspect considerably. Any pastures and hay fields with high legume content need a 6-week period in early autumn for recovery, and they shouldn't be grazed or cut during this time. But that allows the legume roots and crowns to store some energy, so there's less winter kill, and you've got healthy, vigorous plants in the spring. Also in winter, you should have a sacrifice paddock, both for winter and wet times. This is a place that's not intended to grow grass. There might be a few weeds that grow in there, but you're not looking to have an organic soil in there. You should have a well-drained sandy or gravelly soil. We should have a little slope. It should include a shelter, a frost-free waterer, and enough space for about 1/4 acre per horse. Then in the spring, you should wait until the forage is at least 15 to 20 centimeters tall before putting the horses out on the pasture.
Thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy day to meet with the Equine Information Source and to do this interview with myself.
It was a pleasure to be with you, Amanda.